Chosen one. You did not arrive here by accident. You have walked through long seasons of silent seasons where you felt different, set apart, yet unseen. You believed deeply, you trusted fully, and then the testing came so intense that it shook even the strongest faith. You didn't complain, you didn't broadcast your pain, but deep inside you grew tired. And maybe you've been asking yourself in the quiet, why does everything feel delayed? Why am I doing the right thing and still seeing no results? Did I misunderstand God's will for my life? Chosen one, hear this with your spirit, not just your ears. Heaven scheduled this moment. Divine timing aligned your steps to this message because you are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift. What looked like delay was not denial. What felt like silence was not abandonment. As it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, the vision waits for its appointed time, but it will surely come and it will not delay. This video is not information, it is an activation. If you stay until the end, clarity will replace confusion, strength will replace weariness, and what was tested quietly will now be rewarded openly. So subscribe now to stay connected to this prophetic flow. Comment 777 and the city where you are watching from as a declaration that you are the chosen one, committing to receive every word as it unfolds and allowing the word of God to soak deeply into your soul. Chosen one. The weight you've been carrying did not come from nowhere. It didn't arrive because you failed or because heaven lost interest in your life. It came because something valuable was being shaped inside you, something that could not be formed in noise, applause, or ease. I know this because I have lived through seasons where obedience felt invisible, where doing the right thing seemed to produce silence instead of results. There were days I woke up already tired, not from effort, but from waiting. Waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, waiting for something, anything to tell me the struggle had meaning. And maybe that's where you are right now. You didn't quit. You didn't walk away. You didn't abandon your values when compromise would have made life easier. You kept showing up quietly. You kept choosing integrity when no one was watching. You kept trusting even when your prayers felt like they were echoing back to you unanswered. That wasn't weakness. That was the test. And tests like that are never loud. The reason this season felt so isolating is because it was never meant to be validated by people. Heaven does not test publicly what it plans to reward openly. When God is preparing someone for elevation, He often removes the noise first. He strips away applause so that obedience can be purified. He allows silence so that trust can deepen. That silence you endured was not emptiness, it was incubation. Things were forming in you that could not survive exposure too early. There were moments you probably wondered if you misunderstood God completely. You replayed old promises in your mind and asked yourself if they were ever real. I've done that too, sitting alone thinking, if this calling is real, why does it feel like everything is moving except me? But what I learned is, this divine delay is not about slowing you down. It's about strengthening your foundation so that when movement comes, it doesn't destroy you. Chosen one. Heaven never rushes what must last. The reason the testing happened quietly is because the reward will require maturity, not excitement. You were being trained to carry weight without needing recognition. You were being shaped to remain steady when outcomes were uncertain. That is not common strength. That is entrusted strength. And only those God trusts deeply are allowed to walk through seasons like that. I remember a time when everything in my life looked stable on the outside, but internally I felt suspended, like I was standing between what was promised and what was visible. Bills still came. Responsibilities didn't pause. People still expected me to perform. Yet the sense of forward motion was missing. What I didn't realize then was that heaven was rearranging things behind the scenes, aligning people, timing, and opportunities that would require precision. Had they arrived earlier, I would not have known how to steward them. That is why you were tested in the area that mattered most to you. Some of you were tested financially, living responsibly while resources stayed tight. Some were tested relationally, choosing peace while being misunderstood. Some were tested spiritually, continuing to believe even when emotions went numb. Tests always target what is connected to your assignment. The pressure you felt was not random, it was directional. And here is the shift you need to hear clearly: tests do not last forever. There is a moment when heaven decides that the lesson has been learned, the posture has been proven, and the season can turn. That moment is not announced with noise, it is marked by alignment. Things begin to move without force. Doors open that you did not knock on. Conversations you didn't plan bring clarity. Resources begin to respond to you differently. This is where you are now. The same obedience that felt unrewarded is now being acknowledged in the spirit. The same patience that went unnoticed is now producing authority. The reason you feel something shifting inside you lately, less panic, more stillness, is because the test has done its work. You are no longer reacting the way you used to. You are no longer scrambling for validation. That internal change is the evidence that promotion is near. Scripture often shows that before visible elevation comes a hidden proving. Even Jesus was led into the wilderness before public ministry. That was not a punishment, it was preparation. And when he emerged, he did not come out weaker, he came out aligned. That same pattern has been unfolding in your life. You were not abandoned in the wilderness. You were being refined there. Chosen one, wealth shifts, divine elevation, and supernatural alignment are not released to those who desire them the most, but to those who can steward them without losing themselves. Heaven has been watching how you handled pressure, how you spoke when you could have complained, how you remained grounded when others walked away. Those moments mattered, they were recorded, and now the atmosphere around you is responding. You may notice that what once drained you no longer has the same power. Situations that used to trigger fear now feel manageable. That is not coincidence, that is readiness. When heaven releases reward, it first confirms stability. And stability is what you've been quietly building. So if you're sensing that something is about to break open, not in chaos, but in order, trust that feeling. It is not wishful thinking, it is recognition. Recognition that the season of testing has accomplished its purpose. Recognition that the silence is lifting. Recognition that what was delayed was not denied but timed. Stay present with this moment. Let it settle into you. Because when reward comes, it doesn't always arrive as a sudden miracle. Sometimes it arrives as peace that doesn't make sense, confidence that doesn't depend on circumstances, and alignment that no longer requires striving. That is how you know heaven has intervened. Chosen one. There is a reason the testing did not announce itself. It did not come with warnings or explanations, because if you had known what it was shaping, you might have tried to interfere. You might have rushed it. You might have tried to escape it. But heaven needed you honest, not hurried. It needed you grounded, not performing. And so the pressure was allowed to sit quietly on your life while your character did the work no audience could ever applaud. You were tested in places no one else could see. In the moments when you had every reason to speak up, defend yourself, or walk away, and you chose restraint. In the days when your faith didn't feel fiery, but you still showed up. In the nights when you questioned everything, yet refused to abandon what you knew was right. That kind of faith is not loud, it is deep, and depth is what carries weight in the spiritual realm. What many people misunderstand is that God does not test to discover who you are. He already knows. Testing reveals who you believe He is. That's why the delay pressed so hard against your trust. It wasn't about timing alone. It was about alignment. Heaven was watching to see if you would cling to outcomes or surrender to wisdom. And you chose surrender more often than you realize. I remember a season where my prayers became quieter, not because I had less to say, but because I learned to listen. I stopped demanding answers and started asking for alignment. And that shift didn't change my circumstances overnight, but it changed me. It taught me how to stand without control, how to trust without proof. That is not passive faith. That is mature faith. And maturity is what qualifies a person to carry more. Chosen one, you were never meant to stay in survival mode. Survival was only the training ground. The reason the testing felt repetitive is because the lesson needed to be internal, not intellectual. Heaven wasn't trying to teach you information. It was forming instinct, so that when provision comes, you don't panic. When opportunity appears, you don't self-sabotage. When authority is placed in your hands, you don't shrink. The quiet test stripped away your need to be seen. That alone tells me something significant is approaching. Because visibility without preparation destroys people. Influence without grounding crushes them. Wealth without stewardship consumes them. God does not release blessing to impress others. He releases it to expand purpose. And purpose requires a steady soul. There were moments you probably felt like life was passing you by, watching others advance while you stayed in place. Watching doors open for people who didn't seem half as careful or faithful as you. That comparison was part of the test too. Would you remain anchored when the timeline didn't make sense? Would you keep honoring your values when shortcuts seemed rewarded? And you did. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what heaven trusts. You weren't delayed because you were unworthy. You were delayed because what's coming needs someone who won't be moved by applause or fear. Someone who won't lose themselves the moment pressure lifts. Someone who can hold blessing without letting it redefine their identity. You were being trained to stay yourself in new territory. There is a difference between wanting change and being ready for it. Many people pray for elevation but resist refinement. They want the reward without the reshaping. But you stayed when it got uncomfortable. You stayed when obedience felt costly. That is why the shift you are about to experience will not be chaotic. It will be ordered. It will feel like things finally clicking into place. Pay attention to what has been happening inside you lately. Your reactions are calmer. Your discernment is sharper. You are less reactive, less desperate to explain yourself. That is not emotional numbness. That is stability forming. That is evidence that the test has accomplished its purpose. Heaven does not release the next phase until the previous one has produced strength. I've learned that when God prepares to move someone, He often quiets their surroundings first. Fewer voices, less distraction, fewer options. That narrowing is not punishment, it is focus. It teaches you to hear clearly, to move intentionally, to recognize alignment when it appears. And now alignment is beginning to respond to you. You may not see the full picture yet, but you can sense the shift. Conversations feel different. Opportunities feel closer. Your spirit feels expectant, but not anxious. That balance is rare. It only comes after a season of deep testing, when desire has been purified and faith has been strengthened beyond emotion. Chosen one. Heaven does not forget those who are faithful in private. There is a record being kept, not of your perfection, but of your posture, how you handled disappointment, how you treated people when you felt overlooked, how you honored God when it would have been easier to compromise. Those moments built something eternal. The reward that is being released is not just external, it is internal authority. It is peace that anchors you when circumstances shift. It is wisdom that guides you without panic. It is provision that aligns with purpose rather than pressure. And yes, for many of you, it will manifest in tangible ways, resources, opportunities, elevation, but it will arrive through alignment, not force. I want you to understand this clearly. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into clarity. You are not being thrown into something unprepared. You are being invited into what you've been quietly built for. The testing trained your spirit to remain steady, so that when things begin to move, you don't lose your grounding. There is a reason you survived what should have broken you, a reason you remained intact when others fell apart, a reason your faith didn't disappear even when it was challenged. That reason is unfolding now, and as it unfolds, you will notice less striving and more flow. Less confusion and more confirmation. Let this settle. You do not need to rush the moment. You do not need to prove anything. The test has already spoken on your behalf, and heaven is responding. Chosen one. There is a sacred reason the silence lasted as long as it did. Silence is not the absence of God's voice. It is the atmosphere where discernment is sharpened. When noise fades, what remains is truth. And in that quiet, you learned how to listen without needing immediate answers. You learned how to stand without constant reassurance. You learned how to keep your spirit anchored when nothing around you confirmed what you believed. That training cannot happen in motion. It happens in stillness. The silent season exposed the parts of you that relied on outcomes instead of alignment. It revealed where your faith had been tied to results rather than relationship. And instead of condemning you for that, heaven began to rewire you. Little by little, expectation replaced anxiety. Trust replaced urgency. You stopped chasing signs and started recognizing direction. That internal shift is the clearest sign that the test has matured you. I remember learning this the hard way. There were times I prayed less for change and more for peace, not because I had given up, but because I had learned that peace is often the first sign of movement. When peace arrives before circumstances shift, it means alignment is happening behind the scenes. That is where you are now. You may not have everything you asked for yet, but you have something better forming stability that cannot be shaken when blessing arrives. Chosen one. The silent season trained you to live without constant affirmation. That alone separates you from many. You no longer need approval to know who you are. You no longer panic when plans change. You no longer collapse when things take longer than expected. That emotional maturity did not come from comfort. It came from endurance. And endurance is the currency heaven recognizes. There were days you probably questioned whether you were being overlooked. Days when obedience felt lonely and unrewarded. Days when you wondered why others seemed to move ahead while you stayed in place. But staying did not mean stagnation. It meant formation. Heaven was not withholding progress. It was deepening capacity. You were learning how to carry responsibility without resentment, how to hold faith without urgency, how to remain open without becoming fragile. This is why the reward that is approaching will not overwhelm you. It will not destabilize you. It will not redefine you. It will meet you where you are grounded, aware, and ready. Many people collapse when things finally work out because they never learned how to stand when nothing was working. You did. That is why the testing lasted quietly. It needed to shape something durable. Chosen one. Notice how your inner world has changed. You think differently now. You respond differently. You no longer feel the need to explain your journey to people who cannot understand it. That restraint is wisdom. You have learned that not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next phase. Silence taught you discernment. It taught you when to speak and when to stay still. That discernment will protect what is coming. There is a reason God often hides people before he reveals them. Hiddenness preserves purity. It prevents contamination from voices that would distort purpose. It keeps identity intact. The silent season kept you from becoming something you are not. It kept you aligned with who you truly are not, who pressure would have shaped you into. And now that integrity is about to be rewarded, you were tested in waiting because waiting reveals motivation. You were tested in lack because lack reveals trust. You were tested in isolation because isolation reveals identity. And through it all, you did not abandon your core. You may have questioned. You may have felt weary. But you did not become bitter. That matters more than you know. Heaven does not elevate people who are driven by comparison. It elevates those who are anchored in purpose. The silence stripped comparison out of you. It taught you to run your own race, to measure progress by obedience, not speed. That is why when movement begins, it will feel right, not rushed. It will feel steady, not frantic. I want you to understand something deeply. The silence you endured is what made you safe to bless. Blessing without grounding destroys people. Provision without peace overwhelms them. Influence without discernment corrupts them. God is too intentional to allow that. That is why he waited until your inner world matched your calling. Chosen one, you are not late, you are aligned. And alignment always feels slower than ambition, but faster than force. When alignment takes over, things move without resistance. You will notice this soon. Less effort, clearer direction. Favor that doesn't require explanation. That is not luck. That is response. Heaven responds to readiness. The silent season also taught you how to let go. You released expectations that no longer served you. You loosened your grip on timelines you could not control. That surrender created space. Space is where new things form. Space is where provision finds you. Space is where direction becomes clear. You were not losing anything in the silence. You were making room. Pay attention now to what no longer fits. Certain conversations feel empty. Certain environments feel heavy. Certain ambitions feel misaligned. That is not confusion. That is discernment increasing. As reward approaches, refinement continues. Heaven does not just give, it also removes. Not to punish, but to protect. You are stepping into a phase where you will no longer need to fight for recognition. Recognition will come naturally through alignment. You will not need to force doors. Doors will respond to your presence. You will not need to over-explain. Your steadiness will speak for you. That is the fruit of a silent season lived well. Chosen one, let this truth anchor you. Silence did not mean stagnation. It meant preparation, and preparation always precedes release. What is being released now is not random. It is the result of a process that required patience, endurance, and trust. You passed that process not by perfection, but by perseverance. Stay present. Stay grounded. You do not need to anticipate every detail. The same wisdom that carried you through silence will guide you through movement. And as things begin to align, remember who you became in the quiet. That version of you is what qualifies you for what comes next. Chosen one. There is a pattern that repeats across every life that is truly called, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The pattern is not about perfection. It is not about speed. It is about preparation. Those who are entrusted with weight are always tested in ways that look unnecessary to outsiders. The pressure seems excessive. The timing feels unfair. The isolation feels extreme. But this pattern is intentional, and it has been unfolding in your life with precision. The pattern begins with a call that feels larger than your current circumstances. You sensed it early. A pull toward meaning, a refusal to live shallow, an inner knowing that you were meant for more than survival. That calling did not come with a roadmap. It came with responsibility, and responsibility always attracts resistance before it attracts resources. That resistance is not meant to stop you. It is meant to strengthen you. Every chosen life enters a season where the calling feels distant and the cost feels close. That is when the testing intensifies. Not because heaven doubts you, but because heaven is aligning you. You are tested in faith before you are trusted with favor. You are tested in patience before you are trusted with provision. You are tested in humility before you are trusted with influence. This is not random, it is ordered. I have watched this pattern unfold in my own journey and in the lives of others who carry real weight. There is always a phase where progress looks invisible, where obedience feels unrewarded, where others question your decisions and you quietly question yourself. This is where many walk away, not because they are weak, but because they misinterpret the season. They assume resistance means stop, but for the chosen, resistance usually means refine. Chosen one, you were not meant to bypass this pattern. You were meant to be shaped by it. The reason your testing felt layered, one challenge after another, is because each layer was addressing something different. One layer dealt with trust, another dealt with identity, another dealt with control. Heaven was not piling on, heaven was building depth, and depth is what sustains what height cannot. The pattern also includes moments of failure, or what feels like failure. Times when you reacted instead of responded. Times when fear spoke louder than faith. Times when you tried to fix what only God could align. These moments were not disqualifications, they were lessons. Heaven does not disqualify those who stumble while learning to walk with weight. It corrects, restores, and continues the process. This is where many misunderstand the chosen path. They assume that because they struggled, they missed it. Because they doubted, they failed. Because they felt tired, they were unfaithful. That is not how heaven measures readiness. Heaven measures trajectory, direction, willingness to return to alignment when missteps happen, and you did that again and again. There is a reason the pattern includes waiting. Waiting reveals what striving hides. When you can no longer force progress, your true posture emerges. Will you manipulate outcomes? Will you compromise values? Will you abandon patience? Or will you stay anchored? Waiting refined you in ways success never could. It taught you how to sit with uncertainty without collapsing. That skill is rare, and it is essential for what comes next. Chosen one, the pattern also includes separation. Not everyone can walk with you through refinement. Some relationships fade not because of conflict, but because of calling. Some connections cannot survive the quiet season because they were built on activity, not alignment. That separation was painful, but it was protective. It preserved your focus. It kept your spirit uncluttered. It made room for what is now aligning. I want you to hear this clearly. The pattern never ends in testing. It always turns toward entrustment. But entrustment only comes when identity is stable, when validation is no longer required, when approval is no longer chased. That is where you are now. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer measure your worth by progress reports. That internal stability is the signal heaven responds to. Look at how you move now. You are more deliberate, less reactive, more discerning. That is not accidental. That is the fruit of the pattern. You were shaped to carry responsibility without resentment, authority without arrogance, provision without panic. Many people ask for blessing, but few allow themselves to be shaped by the process that sustains it. You did. There were moments you felt behind, moments you felt like you missed opportunities. But the pattern of the chosen is not linear. It is layered. What looks like delay is often sequencing. Heaven does not release things out of order. It aligns them so they arrive together. You were being positioned so that when movement begins, it is comprehensive, not fragmented. This is why the reward that is being released will feel different from what you imagined. It will not arrive as chaos or pressure. It will arrive as alignment. Things that once required effort will begin to flow. Conversations will open naturally. Opportunities will meet you without chasing. That ease is not laziness. It is evidence that the pattern has completed its work. Chosen one. The pattern also protects you from pride, because you know what it took to get here. You know the nights of uncertainty, the moments of doubt, the quiet perseverance. That memory keeps you grounded. It keeps you grateful. It keeps you human. And that humility is what allows blessing to multiply rather than corrupt. I have learned that when God elevates someone, He often does it in a way that cannot be explained by human logic. Not to confuse others, but to keep the person anchored in gratitude rather than ego. The path you walked ensures that when doors open, you will recognize the source. You will know it was not luck, it was alignment. Pay attention now to what is beginning to respond to you. Subtle shifts, small confirmations, a sense of rightness where there used to be tension. These are not coincidences, they are signals. Signals that the pattern has turned. Signals that the testing phase is giving way to entrustment. Chosen one, you are not stepping into something unfamiliar. You are stepping into what you have been quietly prepared for. The pattern did not break you, it built you. And because of that, what is being released will not overwhelm you. It will meet you where you are steady, aware, and ready to carry what you once only hoped for. Chosen one. There is a point in every sacred journey where the weight becomes unmistakable. Not the weight of exhaustion, but the weight of decision. This is the moment when obedience is no longer theoretical. It becomes personal, costly, intimate. This is where the path narrows not to trap you, but to clarify you. And this is where the ultimate test has always appeared, not to see if someone believes, but to see if they trust. Even the Son of God walked through this moment, not in public triumph, not surrounded by applause, but in isolation, in a place where strength was not measured by power, but by surrender. There was no shortcut offered that did not require compromise, no relief promised without sacrifice. The temptation was not just to escape pain, but to abandon alignment. And alignment was the assignment. Chosen one. This matters for you because your testing followed the same spiritual architecture. The greatest pressure you faced was not external opposition, it was internal negotiation, the quiet bargaining. The moment you wondered if there was an easier way, a faster way, a way that still looked faithful but avoided the cost. That tension is not failure, it is proof that the calling is real. I remember a season where I reached the edge of my endurance and thought, if this is what alignment costs, maybe I misunderstood the call. That thought did not come from rebellion, it came from fatigue, and fatigue does not disqualify you, it reveals where grace must deepen. What carried me through was not strength, but trust. Trust that obedience would not abandon me, trust that surrender would not erase me. This is the heart of the ultimate test, choosing trust over control when control feels justified. choosing alignment over relief when relief feels necessary, choosing obedience without needing to see the outcome. That choice is never dramatic on the outside. It is quiet, internal, often invisible, but heaven recognizes it immediately. Chosen one. The reason the test intensified when you were already tired is because the final shaping always happens when self-reliance is exhausted, when you can no longer muscle your way through, when strategy runs out, when certainty dissolves. That is where trust becomes real, not because it feels good, but because there is no alternative left. The ultimate test is not about endurance alone, it is about desire. What do you want most? Comfort or calling, control or communion, immediate relief or lasting alignment? These questions surface when everything else is stripped away, and the answers are not spoken aloud. They are revealed by what you choose to hold on to when nothing else is working. You chose alignment more often than you think, even when you complained internally, even when you questioned. You still showed up. You still honored what you believed was right. You still refused to become someone you were not. That consistency mattered. It proved something deep and unshakable had formed within you. I want you to understand this clearly. The ultimate test is not about suffering. It is about trust under pressure. It is about whether you believe that God's wisdom exceeds your understanding even when His timing conflicts with your desire. That belief is not passive, it is active surrender. It is choosing to rest your weight on something you cannot see and refusing to let go when the ground feels uncertain. Chosen one. This is why the reward that follows this test is never superficial. It is not just provision. It is authority. Authority that comes from alignment rather than ambition. Authority that cannot be shaken by opposition because it was forged in surrender. Authority that does not need to announce itself because it carries quiet confidence. When Jesus emerged from his testing, nothing about him was frantic. There was no desperation, no need to prove. He moved with clarity, with purpose, with alignment. That is the state you are entering now, not hurried, not reactive, but steady, grounded, certain in who you are and who you serve. The ultimate test also taught you how to pray differently. You no longer prayed to escape, you prayed to align. You no longer asked for everything to change, you asked for yourself to be strengthened. That shift is profound. It marks the transition from survival faith to stewardship faith, from asking for help to carrying responsibility. I know how strange it feels when the fight quiets before the breakthrough arrives, when the urgency lifts and is replaced by stillness. That stillness is not stagnation, it is readiness. It is the calm that precedes entrustment. Heaven does not release weight to those who are frantic. It releases it to those who are settled. Chosen one. You were tested at the level of your calling. That is why it hurt the way it did. Lesser assignments do not attract this kind of pressure. They do not require this kind of refinement. The intensity you experienced was proportional to what you are meant to carry. And because you remained aligned, the reward will be proportional as well. This is where surrender reveals its power, not as weakness, but as authority under control. When you stop forcing outcomes, outcomes begin to align. When you stop chasing validation, validation becomes unnecessary. When you stop trying to prove your worth, worth begins to speak for itself. That is the posture heaven trusts. I want you to take a moment and recognize what has changed in you. You are not the same person who entered the test. Your reactions are different. Your priorities are clearer. Your faith is quieter but stronger. That transformation did not happen by accident. It happened because you chose trust when control was tempting. The ultimate test did not take anything from you. It revealed what could never be taken: your identity, your integrity, your alignment. And because those things remained intact, you are now safe to bless, safe to elevate, safe to entrust. Chosen one. This is not the end of the journey, but it is the turning point, the place where the weight shifts from pressure to purpose, where obedience stops feeling like loss and begins to feel like alignment, where trust is no longer something you practice, but something you live. Let that settle into your spirit. You did not just endure the test, you were transformed by it. And that transformation is what makes what comes next sustainable, meaningful, and heaven-backed. Chosen one. There is a moment when the atmosphere shifts before the evidence appears. It is subtle, almost easy to miss if you are not paying attention. The pressure that once felt constant begins to loosen. The urgency that drove your prayers softens into confidence. You are not celebrating yet, but you are no longer bracing for impact. That is the moment when the test gives way to reward. Not loudly, not suddenly, but decisively. This is the transition you are standing in now. The shift from proving to receiving, from endurance to alignment, from surviving to stewarding. It does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives with clarity, with peace that holds its ground even when circumstances have not fully caught up. That peace is not emotional relief. It is spiritual confirmation. I've learned that heaven rarely announces reward the way the world does. The world rewards with applause, with visibility, with immediate validation. Heaven rewards with access. Access to favor you could not earn. Access to opportunities that recognize you before you introduce yourself. Access to provision that aligns instead of overwhelms. And access is always preceded by readiness. Chosen one. The reason this reward is being released now is not because you finally did enough. It is because you finally became stable enough. Stable in identity, stable in trust, stable in alignment. Heaven does not release weight to people who still need it to validate them. It releases weight to those who can carry it without being changed by it. Think about what has shifted internally over the last season. You no longer feel the need to chase what once consumed your thoughts. You are less reactive to delays, less shaken by uncertainty, less driven by comparison. That inner stillness is not accidental. It is the signal that the test has produced its intended fruit. There was a time when you would have panicked at the thought of things changing suddenly. You would have questioned your worth, overanalyzed your readiness, tried to control the outcome. But now there is a quiet trust forming, a sense that whatever unfolds, you will be able to stand in it without losing yourself. That confidence did not come from success. It came from surrender. The shift from test to reward also changes how things approach you. You will notice that you no longer need to force conversations. The right ones find you. You no longer have to chase opportunities. They begin to recognize your alignment. You no longer have to overextend yourself to be noticed. Your presence carries weight without explanation. This is what heaven-backed alignment feels like. Not effort-heavy, not exhausting, but purposeful. Things begin to connect naturally because you are finally standing in the frequency that matches what is meant for you. The struggle was never about lack. It was about alignment. And now that alignment has settled, flow becomes possible. Chosen one. I want to be honest with you. The reward will not look exactly like you imagined during the test. And that is a good thing. During the test, your vision was shaped by pain and urgency. Now your vision is being shaped by wisdom and timing. What is coming will fit who you are now, not who you were when you were desperate. There were prayers you prayed that heaven did not answer the way you asked, not because they were wrong, but because they were incomplete. Heaven saw the full picture. It saw what you would need to sustain what you were asking for, and so the delay became preparation. The silence became structure. The pressure became refinement. Now the reward is being released in a way that will not fracture you. It will not overwhelm you. It will not require you to abandon your values to maintain it. That is how you know it is from God. What God releases brings expansion without erosion, increase without instability, elevation without distortion. I remember the first time I recognized this shift in my own life. It wasn't when everything changed overnight. It was when my response to life changed, when challenges no longer triggered panic, when opportunities no longer triggered fear, when success no longer triggered pride. That internal recalibration told me something significant had happened. The test had ended even before the reward fully appeared. Chosen one reward is not always material first. Sometimes it is mental, emotional, spiritual. You receive clarity before provision, confidence before confirmation, peace before promotion. And that order matters, because when provision arrives without clarity, people misuse it. When promotion arrives without peace, people self-destruct. Heaven reverses that order intentionally. This is also why you may feel an unusual calm right now, even as things remain unresolved on the surface. That calm is not complacency, it is readiness. It is the inner environment required for stewardship. You are being trusted with more because you are no longer driven by fear of losing. The shift also brings discernment. You will begin to recognize what is not aligned more quickly. Certain invitations will no longer excite you. Certain paths will no longer tempt you, not because they are bad, but because they are not yours. Alignment sharpens boundaries, and boundaries protect reward. Chosen one, wealth shifts, elevation, and supernatural alignment are not rewards for suffering. They are outcomes of alignment. The suffering was not the price, the surrender was. And surrender reshaped you into someone who can receive without grasping. As this reward begins to unfold, remember this: you do not need to rush it. You do not need to explain it. You do not need to defend it. What is released by heaven does not require justification. It stands on its own authority, and you are allowed to receive it without guilt. You may still feel moments of disbelief, moments where you wonder if this is really happening. That is normal. Your nervous system spent a long time braced for struggle. It will take time to adjust to ease. Be patient with yourself. The same grace that carried you through testing will carry you through receiving. Chosen one, you are crossing a threshold, not into perfection, not into a life without challenges, but into a life where challenges no longer define you, where alignment guides you, where provision responds to purpose, where your identity remains intact regardless of outcome. This is the release, quiet, grounded, certain, not because everything is visible yet, but because everything is aligned, and alignment always precedes manifestation. Chosen one, as this word settles into your spirit, know that you are not leaving this moment empty. Heaven has already responded. What was tested in silence has been approved in the unseen, and the reward is now in motion. You are standing in your Kairos moment, the exact window heaven appointed long before you ever felt the pressure. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was delayed without purpose. Anointed one, receive this as a seal upon your journey. The same hand that carried you through the quiet testing is now releasing alignment, favor, and provision in perfect order. What is unfolding will not confuse you, rush you, or overwhelm you. It will meet you with peace. It will recognize you by name. It will arrive as confirmation, not struggle. Remain faithful in your posture. Stay aligned with the flow of the anointing. Walk forward with gratitude, not fear, knowing that what is about to manifest is sustained by heaven itself. You do not need to strive. You only need to stay receptive. May clarity guard your mind, may peace anchor your steps, and may divine provision locate you with precision. Go forward knowing you were tested because you were trusted. If this word resonated with your spirit, stay connected to this flow. You may quietly subscribe as a sign of alignment, and if you feel led, share where you are watching from your city, your place as a witness to this moment. Go in peace, chosen one. What has begun will surely be completed.